The financial and economic crisis in Lebanon, we've talked about it on this programme frequently, and it is one of the worst in the modern world. The World Bank, it said, could be one of the top 3 most severe economic crises since the mid-19th century. It's obviously in the top 10. Lebanon's GDP has fallen between 40% between 2018 and 2020. The economy was shrinking before COVID, and that made everything a great deal worse. The unemployment rate shot up from 28% to nearly 40% last November, but it's questionable whether anybody believes these numbers and whether the true number is much higher. The country's been weakened by fractious governments and unstable political coalitions. Mona Fawaz is a professor at the American University of Beirut. There you see her. I spoke to Mona before we hear from you. I spoke to you, of course, in 2020 when I was in Beirut. Things were bad then. Have a listen to your optimism and we'll talk after.
I mean, we want a country that's functional, a place where we can live.
What is it? You want to get rid of the existing government and replace it with what?
Replace it with people who are competent, who have some independence from the existing political elite that has run the country for the last 30, 40 years and has really not managed to put forward any kind of national development policy. Look at what happened. The country's bankrupt. The banks are not allowing people to get their money. The debt is massive.
But you would agree that in the short term, you're going to have to continue with pretty much the same bunch because they're the ones who know how to run things.
Look, there is no abracadabra where you just change everything and it gets transformed. But what we aspire to is putting in place a process of change. And I really believe that this process has happened.
Well, Mona, I mean, it's awful when people play your own words back to you. But that process of change with which you were so optimistic, far from happening, things have gone backwards.
Things have gone backwards, definitely. And I think what we're seeing today is those people who have run the country, those warlords really, who at the end of the Lebanese civil war traded their military fatigues with business suits and ran the country in what has recently been called a deliberate depression by the World Bank, that they are going to fight with every power they have so that they prevent a process of accountability from being put in place. You'll remember that the end of the Lebanese civil war in 1990 did not lead to any tribunal, no accountability. And these are people who have become accustomed to the fact that there's no accountability, right, and who are telling us today as Lebanese civilians that they will fight so that no accountability ever happens.
What's worrying, of course, is that everybody knows this. And whether it's Hezbollah or whether it's the other side or whatever, everybody knows the appalling situation. And I wonder if last year's explosion wasn't able to bring people together and at least create some fiction of unity, what will it take?
I mean, I think we really have to be really careful about that narrative of the Lebanese being so divided, or that what happened today in Beirut is chaos and that it has no logic. Today, we watched a stage show by people who had staged the civil war exactly in the same spots where the civil war had started, reminding us of those moments where you rush to school to get your kid, get scared in school hallways, etc., to tell us, look, we're ready to go back there if you think you can bring accountability. And so this is today what we're seeing is a threat to a population that I think is actually fairly aligned on the idea that we want accountability.
No, but hang on a second. The population and the other people may be aligned on that, but as long as these other thugs and brutals are opposite them, then you don't get any further.
I mean, look, I don't claim like I have a solution. It's not a hopeful moment right now in Lebanon. But right, those guys you're seeing on the street, those thugs, they are managed by decision makers who managed the Lebanese civil war. These are people who know how to plot and to stage things. Yeah.
So, Mona, we're a business show. Tell me, if you were a Western government, a G7 or an EU government, French particularly, and you had the question, shall I give more money to Lebanon? Or shall I really turn the squeeze on? You know, it might be painful for the people, but in the long run, it will be better. What would you do?
Starving people is exactly what then makes them become thugs who are very cheap to hire. And that's what we're seeing today. When people get as hungry as we're seeing today, when we have for the first time, really, even during the Civil War, homeless people sleeping on the street, kids, elderly people, we've never seen this in the country. People have become today very cheap to buy, very cheap to just hire for carrying a weapon and fighting. So I completely do not believe in starving the population. This doesn't mean handing over money to the current Lebanese government or to any one of the political parties. But this country has institutions that are functional, a society that has a very high social capital. I work at the American University of Beirut. There is so much knowledge and so much human capital and desire and will to change things. We should not be let down.
We'll talk more. No, I appreciate your time. Thank you.